Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. As usual, if you're new here, then subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up by simply tapping on the like button, and feel free to be part of this conversation by simply sharing your thoughts in the comment section down below. With that said, let's get into today's video. Now, of late, there has been so much backlash faced by Amy Chain, an Asian activist who consistently speaks out against racism, NWS, often advocating for the rights of Black people. It's really disheartening to see someone facing criticism for standing up against injustice, but Amy Chain isn't backing down for no reason. In fact, she's taking on the hate head on and responding to some of the comments directed at her. So let's jump into the conversation and show some support for Amy Chain's unwavering commitment to equality and justice. This one's for you, Amy. Keep fighting the good fight. With that said, let's take a look at these videos as she responds to different people.
My content is about anti-oppression in the United States in particular, and because our liberation is tied together, the way that a person like me can contribute to dismantling systems of oppression is by listening to, learning from, following the lead, and amplifying the voices of the people who understand those systems the best. And unfortunately, the people who understand those systems the best are the people who have experienced the most harm, which in the United States is Native and Black Americans. The other thing is, as an Asian American, in the United States, Asian American positionality is to cause harm to Black people specifically, for example, via the model minority myth. So a lot of my content is about acknowledging and addressing anti-Blackness among Asian Americans and talking about how to fight against our positionality by not aligning and not subscribing to narratives in particular about Black people. If I failed to do that and I were to focus only on anti-Asian discrimination or xenophobia, that can actually contribute to divide and conquer. That's how you wind up with Asian Americans who signed on to dismantle affirmative action. That's how you wind up with Asian Americans who fall for misinformation scapegoating Black people for the increase in anti-Asian violence. That's how you wind up with measures like the anti-Asian hate crime bill, as opposed to advocating for a hate crime bill that would benefit all marginalized people the way the Emmett Till Anti-Act benefits all people. But the only way that I can do that is to speak out candidly against anti-Blackness. Now, as a side note, she, her pronouns are fine with me, but I am non-binary. Generally speaking, if you are somebody that is not okay with, please block me or do whatever you need to do to not interact with me, or if you need my help, I can block you too. The wonderful thing about your hubris and willful ignorance is it provides remarkably low-hanging fruit to debunk, because Robert Aaron Long, the Atlanta spy, is not Black. Jose Gomez, who attacked an Asian family in Texas and a 6-year-old Asian child, is not Black. David Chu, who attacked a Taiwanese American church in LA, is not Black. And Steve Zajonc, who attacked 7 Asian American women in New York City in one afternoon, is not only not Black, but he used while being arrested by Black officers. So there goes your claim that all of the anti-Asian hate crimes are being committed by Black people. As for your claim that the resources showing that it is people committing a majority of anti-Asian hate crimes are from far-left media, that's only true if you consider the FBI to be far-left media. And speaking of the FBI, their most recent update on hate crime statistics shows that there was a 33% decrease in anti-Asian hate crimes from 2021 to 2022. Now, because we're a relatively small population, speaking in terms of percentages can be misleading, so in terms of numbers, that's a decrease from about 750 incidents to about 500 incidents. Keeping in mind that during that same time period, there was an increase in anti-Black, anti-Hispanic, anti-Q, and anti-Semitic hate crimes. So the decrease in anti-Asian hate crimes gives a fair amount of credence to the idea that the increase that we saw during COVID was caused by Trump's anti-Asian rhetoric. So it looks like you're going to have to get a new talking point. That you characterize Nigerian immigrants and generational African Americans in this way shows that you have no idea what Black people normalize. They're not the ones who normalized entire populations and nations in order to subjugate and steal from them. And your comment shows that you can't even normalize seeing Black people as human beings. Pro tip, in the future, save yourself and everybody the time and energy and just say that you are willfully ignorant and you have no interest in learning, or better yet, scroll on. Because if you had bothered to search for even half a second and the internet is free, you would have found plenty of evidence that Black people experience discrimination over their hairstyles, including natural hairstyles. Like the student in Texas who was dismissed from school because of his hair. Or this news reporter who was told that her natural hairstyle was unprofessional. Or this police officer who received disciplinary action because of her hairstyle. Or a woman in Louisiana who was fired for wearing a natural hairstyle instead of a wig. Or this child in Michigan whose teacher cut her hair without her or her parents' permission. And the 25% of black women who have been denied job interviews because of their hair, on top of the 25% of black women who have been sent home because of their hair. If black people were not experiencing discrimination over their hair, there would be no need for the Crown Act, which Senate Republicans have blocked, and more states are trying to pass. So your ignorance, and however it makes you feel, only reflects on you, does not discredit my knowledge, and is not my problem. So first of all, the recent changes to Thomas Jefferson High School's admissions policies are completely race-blind. During the admissions process, decision makers are not allowed to know the name, race, ethnicity, or gender of applicants. They are only allowed to know whether an applicant is economically disadvantaged and whether an applicant is an English language learner. And during the first year that these changes were implemented, the racial group that saw the greatest increase in enrollment was Hispanic students, not black students. In fact, the increase in enrollment for black students was only on par with the increase in enrollment for lower-income Asian American students. And subsequent years of enrollment data from Thomas Jefferson High School show that the demographic that is most consistently benefiting from these changes is in fact lower-income Asian American students. So the fact that you frame this as being about race and placing black students above Asian American students lets me know that you have done absolutely nothing to inform yourself about the facts of this situation, and that you are just upholding the paradigms that people like Edward Bloom and the Pacific Legal Foundation want you to uphold, which is to further the divide and conquer between black Americans and Asian Americans by upholding Asian Americans as the model minority and framing black people as the problematic minority. Now this summer, when I was doing more videos about Edward Bloom's affirmative action lawsuit against Harvard, a lot of people like yourself and Asian Americans were saying that they do think that affirmative action is good. However, it should not be based on race. It should be based on socioeconomics. Now that Thomas Jefferson High School has done exactly that, it's not good enough for you. And what this shows is that you will oppose any measure that even remotely sounds like it could potentially benefit black people, even when the proven reality is it is benefiting everybody else more. Because you are willing to oppose the benefits for everybody else just to ensure that black people have nothing. First of all, I make it a point not to preach perfection because it doesn't exist. It is an idea that is also a characteristic that upholds supremacy culture. And I speak on and practice dismantling supremacy, especially in the United States, because I am a US citizen, born to US citizens and raised here, so I am looking at my people. And a lot of my content is aimed at addressing, educating, and supporting my fellow Asian Americans as we work to dismantle supremacy by unlearning anti-blackness, learning to see wash narratives, and understanding how Asian American positionality is in a way that causes harm specifically to black people. Now, my last video response to you, as with this one, in terms of respectfulness, is completely decent. What you do not find decent is you are not being placated. You are not being coddled, so it's not satisfactory to you, and that is called tone policing. In that video, I explained that the issue is there are too many people like yourself who do not want to see that system of oppression dismantled because you benefit from it. So you constantly interject and center yourself with a stream of deflection tactics such as prove it to me, or your personal favorite, talk about something else. And yes, that behavior is because it involves your sense of entitlement to tell a person of the global majority to stop talking about supremacy because it makes you feel uncomfortable, and to make demands that I talk about something that you want to hear. However, there is a difference between being labeled and having it pointed out how your comments and your behaviors are. Labeling a person or claiming that you have been labeled not is lazy, because labeling a person leaves no path for growth. However, you have been provided with information about how and why your behavior is so that you can change it if you want to. But if you don't want to, then by all means, spread the message loud and clear. If you do not want your comments and behaviors being corrected by me, do not interact with my content. You're obviously not aware of this, but blessed is not a word that the global majority thinks of in association with Europeans. Words like plague and colonizer, maybe, but not blessed. And the cell phone in my hand came from China. So I don't know if you're referencing Steve Jobs or Martin Cooper or the Finnish inventor who created the first pocket-sized telecommunication device in 1917, and you probably don't know either because your education system has left you terribly ignorant and without the critical thinking skills necessary to effectively gather information. Because you believe that most great inventions can be attributed to one, as opposed to recognizing that the patent system is how we colonize intellectual property. We would not have cell phones if it wasn't for the creation of the gamma electrical cell by Black inventor Henry T. Sampson. And most of our cell phones would not have microphones in them if it wasn't for the particular microphone that was created by Black inventor James Edward West. The creation of the first digital network, 1G, was launched in Japan, and then Black electrical engineer Jesse Russell pioneered the creation of 2G, which launched in Finland first. 3G launched in Japan, 4G launched in Norway, 5G launched in South Korea, and 30% of the world's cell phones are manufactured in China. Because we, of the global majority, recognize that collective humanity has the ingenuity and creativity of one another to thank, whereas a lot of European Americans are laboring under the delusion that the rest of us have people to thank. And it's this narcissistic ignorance that causes people like you to do embarrassing things, like leaving comments about Europeans and cell phones on a video about systemic anti-black in the United States. And while that could be written off as a comedic and senile non sequitur, we recognize it as a desperate attempt to center yourself in a conversation that has nothing to do with you. The irony being that people like to say not all people and they shouldn't be held accountable for the misdeeds of their ancestors, yet they want to be associated with the greatness of the things that they think they invented.
Now, her resilience in the face of criticism and unwavering dedication to advocating against articism and WS deserves recognition and support. It's so disappointing to see someone being attacked simply for speaking out on issues of social justice and equality. One of the comments she addresses accuses her of being disingenuous for speaking on behalf of Black Americans as an Asian woman. Now, this criticism overlooks the importance of solidarity and allyship across racial lines in the fight against systemic oppression. Amy Chain's advocacy demonstrates that combating articism is not limited to those directly affected by it, but requires collective action from individuals of all backgrounds. Another comment dismisses hate crimes against Asians as solely perpetrated by Black individuals, ignoring the complexity of intercommunity dynamics and the need to address articism within all communities. Her response challenges such narrow perspectives and highlight the importance of nuanced understanding and solidarity among marginalized groups. She also addresses misconceptions about discrimination faced by Black individuals, particularly regarding hairstyles. The commenter's ignorance underscores the prevalence of stereotypes and the need for education on issues of racial discrimination and cultural sensitivity. Now, I'm not going to tackle on each and every comment that she was responding to, but I am just going to add on what she was talking about. Her advocacy embodies the principles of intersectionality, recognizing that various forms of oppression intersect and compound upon each other. As an Asian woman, she understands the importance of solidarity with other marginalized communities, including Black Americans. By speaking out against articism and WS, she acknowledges the interconnectedness of different struggles and amplifies marginalized voices. Now, throughout history, marginalized communities have come together in solidarity to challenge systemic injustices. From the civil rights movement to contemporary social justice movements, individuals from diverse backgrounds have joined forces to advocate for equality and justice. Amy Chain's advocacy follows in this tradition of solidarity, recognizing the importance of collective action in effecting meaningful change. Now, her responses to criticisms are grounded in evidence and lived experiences. She refutes misconceptions and provides factual information to debunk myths surrounding hate crimes against Asians and discrimination faced by Black individuals, including issues related to hairstyles. By relying on data and personal narratives, she effectively counters ignorance and misinformation. Now, her advocacy serves as an example of allyship and support for marginalized communities. Rather than centering herself, she amplifies the voices and experiences of those directly affected by articism and discrimination. Her willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and challenge harmful narratives demonstrates a commitment to creating a more inclusive and equitable society for all. Amy Chain's responses to hate comments foster dialogue and community building. By engaging with criticism in a constructive manner, she opens up opportunities for education and mutual understanding. Her willingness to address misconceptions and engage in dialogue reflects a commitment to building bridges and fostering empathy across communities. Now, her advocacy extends beyond national borders, reflecting a commitment to global solidarity in the fight against racism and discrimination. She recognizes that oppression knows no boundaries and that issues of racial injustice are interconnected on a global scale. By speaking out against racism and WS, she aligns herself with a broader movement for social justice that transcends geographic limitations. She may have personal connections or experiences that drive her advocacy for Black Americans and other marginalized communities, whether through friendships, family ties, or personal experiences of discrimination. Her advocacy may stem from a deep sense of empathy and solidarity with those who face systemic oppression. Understanding the personal motivations behind her advocacy can provide insight into the sincerity and authenticity of her efforts. Her responses to hate comments serve as opportunities for educational outreach and consciousness raising. By addressing misconceptions and providing factual information, she not only challenges individual biases, but also contributes to broader efforts to raise awareness about issues of racism and discrimination. Her willingness to engage in dialogue and provide resources for further learning demonstrates a commitment to fostering understanding and empathy among her audience. Her advocacy may incorporate an intersectional analysis that recognizes the ways in which various forms of oppression intersect and interact. By examining the intersections of race, gender, class, sexuality, and other social identities, she offers a more nuanced understanding of the complexities of systemic oppression. Now, this intersectional approach allows her to address the unique experiences and challenges faced by different marginalized communities, while also highlighting the ways in which they are interconnected. Despite facing criticism and hostility, Amy Chain continues to speak out against racism and WS, demonstrating remarkable resilience and courage. Her refusal to be silenced or deterred by hate comments speaks to her commitment to justice and equality. By standing firm in her convictions, she inspires others to join her in the fight for a more just and inclusive society. Let me talk about some of the comments or claims rather that these commenters or people did say to her. The first claim, which is that this Asian woman speaking on behalf of Black Americans, which is awkward and disingenuous. I feel advocating for racial equality and speaking out against racism is not limited to one's, should not actually be limited to one's own racial or ethnic group. Allies and individuals from diverse backgrounds have historically played crucial roles in social justice movements. It is disingenuous to suggest that only Black individuals have the right to speak out against racism, especially when racism affects people of all races. Claim number 2. All hate crimes against Asians have been committed by Black people. Now, this statement is blatantly false and lacks factual basis. Hate crimes can be perpetuated by individuals of any race, and attributing them solely to one racial group is both misleading and dangerous. Hate crimes against Asians, like those against any other racial group, are committed by individuals from various backgrounds and should be condemned regardless of the perpetrator's race. Another claim, which is Black people don't face discrimination for their hairstyles. This assertion demonstrates a profound lack of awareness of the pervasive discrimination faced by Black individuals due to our hairstyles, including natural hairstyles such as afros, braids, and twists. Black people have long been subjected to discriminatory policies and practices in schools, workplaces, and society at large, which target hairstyles. Now, this discrimination is well documented and has led to initiatives such as the Crown Act to combat it. I feel the comments made in the video reflect a troubling trend of ignorance and denial regarding the experiences of marginalized communities. We have finally come to the end of the video. What do you have to say? Share your thoughts, comments in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.